Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 212. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? It is Sunday, December 30th. I hope that you have enjoyed a wonderful holiday week with your family if you celebrate, or just some relaxing time when the world slows down just a little bit. I have been sort of off most of the week. I was off Monday and Tuesday, and my in-laws were here, and then I worked a little bit Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just a few hours here and there, and I just kind of enjoyed a quiet house. My husband did have to work, so I enjoyed a quiet house and an afternoon of crafting most afternoons. Monday, tomorrow is New Year's Eve. He has to work again, and so I'll probably work a few hours and again just enjoy some downtime. And then we've got the 1st, and then the year has started and we're into 2019. And I'm sort of bracing myself because January and February are going to be big months, both at work and travel and everything. So I am enjoying the downtime while I can. So like I said, I hope that you have had a lovely week. I got lots of crafting done. Mostly we were just around the house. It's been, on and off cold. It was in the 50s around Christmas, which was very nice. Then it dropped in the last several days down into the 20s, and it was quite chilly. And then today it's back up to 40. And I almost thought I would go take a walk outside, except that it's really windy, and so it's actually pretty cold. So I may have to get on the treadmill instead. I have been trying to get myself to do at least a little bit of exercise to work off the pumpkin pie and everything else. So let's get into today's podcast. I have lots to talk about and lots to show you, and some plans for 2019 and some wrap up for 2018. And so let's do it. So today I am drinking licorice spice tea from Stash. This is probably an acquired taste for some people. It is black licorice. It's also got, I believe, cinnamon, orange peel, star anise, vanilla flavor, sarsaparilla, orange oil. So a nice kind of spicy tea, and I love licorice, so I'm good with that. And I am drinking it in my Kansas Toto mug, which says, "Dear Dorothy, hate Oz, took the shoes, find your own way home." It's just one of my favorite Kansas jokes. There are lots of Wizard of Oz jokes living in Kansas. So, let's start with the finished objects. I did finish my shawl. I'm very excited. You might see one of the two ends dangling out. I have not cut them, but I wove in the ends and I blocked. So this one is ready to roll. I just need to clip the last two ends. This is the Canyonlands shawl by Nim Teasdale. I knit it in my own hand spun, which was between 750 and 800 yards of a double bump of Hello yarn fiber that I spun, called Like Berries on a Bush. And a bunch of people suggested it is like a muted sunset, which it is kind of a bit. It's reds and oranges and yellows, and then some blues as well. And what I did was I spun my two bumps in a fractal spin, meaning I took one bump and spun it straight through, and then I took one bump and spun it in tiny strips so that I would get some striping. And as you can see, I got some lovely striping. This is a nice big shawl. By the time I blocked it out, it is big enough to sort of wrap thusly, which is how I wear most of my shawls. And I am super pleased, and it will be very nice in the coming cold weather. So I am very pleased with this one. I will say that due to the nature of the pattern, it gets very deep very fast. And so I don't know whether I would make it again, and if I did, I might try and modify it a little bit. It would be a little hard because it would ruin some of the elements of the pattern. This is a paid-for pattern, so I'm not going to tell you all about it. But I'm really, really pleased. This was one of those that was on my list that I wanted to do after seeing a few other people do it, one being Amy Beth, the Fat Squirrel, and the other being Amanda, So Nitpicky. She was of Not a Podcast, but now she's Knit Cute. So I am super pleased using a big skein of my hand spun, knitting up 800 yards and getting myself a beautiful shawl. So that is my first finished object for the week, and not surprising because I was I was just about done last week. I also used up almost every last inch of the yarn. I might have gotten one more row based on the tiny little ball that I have left, but I am plenty happy that I bound off when I did, because I also could have gotten 3/4 of the way through the that extra row and then not had, or gotten through that extra row and then not had enough for bind off. So I am very pleased, and even though I talked about whether or not I wanted to block it because of the garter stitch, it is still pretty squishy. So that is my Canyonlands by Nim Teasdale. Highly recommend. So that is that one done and dusted this year. The last finished object for the year, because I don't think I'm going to get anything else done, so I'll talk to you a little bit about my other projects, but the deal is that I cast on some projects, including a pair of socks for my Christmas Eve cast on that were patterned, and I really wanted to knit a pair of patterned socks this year because I was getting tired of vanilla socks. However, when we sat down to play games and hang out with the family on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I realized that I couldn't play games and knit a patterned sock because I was too busy like counting and figuring out where I was. So I cast on for a very small pair of vanilla socks, and I knit Miles some vanilla socks. This is the leftovers of sweater weather. I am almost done with it now. I have just a smidge left, and I might put it in my scrap blanket. I haven't been putting stripy yarns in my scrap blanket, so I haven't decided if I will, but these are super cute. Basically, I just did a vanilla sock with a Fish Lips Kiss heel, and these are going to go to him for Valentine's Day, and I'm going to make Roxy a pair from my Christmas Eve cast on, so I'll show you that in just a minute, and she'll get a pair of socks as well. So these are done, like I said, very small, but got them on and off the needles really quickly. I think I knit them up in like I knit them up technically in 4 nights, because I did like the leg and the heel and a little bit after the heel the first night, and then finished it the second night, and then did the same thing with this one. So super cute and super done. So I think those are the last finished objects of 2018. I ran some preliminary numbers today, and I know that I'm not quite right, but I think I knit, I want to say I knit between 25 and 30,000 yards of yarn this year, which is a lot, which is like almost 20 miles of yarn. It makes sense because I did some big sweater projects. I did lots of socks, lots of shawls, lots of other things. The reason that I'm not 100% sure, and I need to count it again, is because when I count yardage in and out, I also count the skeins that sell in my shop as out because they are no longer in my house. So I need to double check that again to make sure that I have counted correctly, because I think that number is a little bit high because it probably includes some of the skeins that I sold. But on the other hand, I know I did a lot of 1,000-yard projects this year, both in lace weight and others. So I'm very pleased. Also, regardless of whether that includes some things that left this house that I didn't actually knit up, when all was said and done, I worked with knit up, used up about 16,000 more yards than I brought in. So that means 16,000, 6,000. Gosh, I can't remember. I did all the numbers, and then I was going to talk to you about it. Basically, I remained stash negative for the year. I sent out more than I brought in. And I think a big reason for this is that in the last couple months I have not been buying very much because my income has been a little bit different. But I also have definitely tried to use from stash. And I think one of my big crafting goals in 2019 is going to be to use stash. I think my income will be limited for a little bit longer, and we're doing some big trips this year, so I'm going to spend my money on going places and creating memories and doing things, as opposed to buying lots of yarn, which is not a judgment call in any way. It's just how I'm going to choose to spend my money this year. So I have lots of projects planned from stash. I think in my Make 9 I had, because I did Make 9 on Instagram, like I picked out 9 different projects that I wanted to do this year. And I'm pretty sure all of them I have stash yarn for. Like, I don't need to go buy yarn for it. So my plan is to work through some of those projects, plus some review projects, and try and work from within my stash. So that's kind of the wrap up for 2018 as far as knitting goes. Let's talk about other projects that are whips and things that I've cast on. So a whip that I showed you last week, but I also brought back this week, is my my crochet blanket. I am still working on it. I believe last week when I left, I was at this I was just starting this very pale pink. So I've put another inch and a half on there, and I have used a variety of yarns that I have used this year. And then I am currently in the process of putting on some of my leftover. This was from my Thanksgiving knit. I called it my flamingo wrap. It was my Volga, and this is from Ba Yarns La Jolla, and it reminded me of flamingos because it's like pink and red and orange. So I'm just starting that, so I put on another inch on this. I'm just going to continue to work on this until I feel like I don't want to work on it for a little while, and then I will put it away again. I'm at a couple feet, which is nice, but I want it to be, you know, like 6-7 feet, so it's a big blanket. So I still have a ways to go, but I am happy with this being a long-term project. I started this in 2017, and I am happy to let this go as long as I have scraps and want to keep working on it. So I'll work on it now while I feel the urge to, and then if I put it away, I put it away, and it will come back out when it is time. So that is the other thing that I was working on, kind of a work in progress, and one of the few works in progress that I'll carry over into the new year. I have a couple things that are just on the needles now, but that I've only started in the last week or two. I have one other sweater that's in progress that I started this summer and didn't finish, but really I think I'm only carrying over a couple things, and I don't really count them as languishing if I'm still working on them. So that sweater that I haven't looked at in months is definitely languishing, but that's kind of it in terms of bringing things over into the new year. So let's talk about what I've cast on. I, of course, cast on some Christmas Eve socks. And I decided to use a self-striping yarn from Knitterly Things Vesper, and I have that right here. It's Vesper sock yarn. It is in her Joyful Noise colorway, and it is on her merino nylon 75-25 superwash merino 25% nylon. And like I said, it's in the colorway Joyful Noise, and it's got all these greens and pinks and reds and whites. And I am doing the Partying Up and Getting Down socks by Megan, why am I going to forget her? Megan Williams, who is Just Run Knit. She is part of the Stockinette Zombies podcast. And the cool thing about these socks is you can either, basically it's almost like an arrow point, and you can either have the arrow point up or the arrow point point down. So that's partying up or getting down, and mine are getting down socks. And the way the pattern is written, it's got both in the same pattern, and you could either do one of each or you can make them match. And I'm a little too crazy to do one of each, so I think I'm going to make them match. But this is what I have so far. So like I said, you create this little wedge up at the top. This is a paid for pattern, and then your socks basically do this cool bias thing all the way down to the toe, where then you do some short row shaping again, which is kind of how you got this wedge, and finish it out. The pattern calls for an afterthought heel, but I actually like a heel flap and gusset better, so I did go ahead and put my heel flap and gusset in there, which means my stripes are just a little less wide for a little while we're going through the gusset, but I really like these. The back is just a plain pattern. The front is the one that does all the fun striping. That does the kind of bias knitting. And the deal was that I couldn't keep track of knitting on the bias while I was sitting around the table, because you have to do something a little different every other row, and I just didn't want to muck it up. So I hope to finish this one this week and get the second one cast on. I'm not too far. I'm still decreasing for the gusset, so I'm not too far into the foot, but this is one of my 2 projects for this week to focus on. I would love to finish these up, if not by next weekend, the weekend after. I think next weekend's probably a little bit soon, but I need to finish these up because I would like to use the leftovers from this yarn. And then I'm using a contrast yarn, which is, I believe, Dale Baby Uli, and it's in this hot pink. And I would love to finish, I'll do toes as well in the hot pink. And then part of the reason for my doing that is so that I have enough left over that I would like to knit Roxy a pair of socks to match. I probably won't do this pattern. I'll probably just do a plain vanilla sock pattern for her. But to do a pair of socks for her for Valentine's Day. So then I will be ready to send off the Valentine's Day package, which will be great. So I need to finish these within the next week or so I can cast hers on and get hers off the needles. Hopefully hers will be quick, probably not quite as quick as Miles, but hopefully not too long. So I need to finish mine. So this is a project that will see lots of work this week. The final cast on is something that I talked to you about last week and also was part of the giveaway, and I'm going to get there in just a second. Last week I reviewed Curls 3 Versatile Wearable Wraps to Knit at Any Gauge by Hunter Hammerson. I did I said that this version was for giveaway. 10 of you left comments on the video, and I ran the random number generator. And Laura E., you are the winner. So please send me a Ravelry PM or an email at ldwcameron@gmail.com, or you can also use the corner of knitnt@gmail.com. Send me your name and address, and I will send this book out to you. In the meantime, I am working on a shawl, because I have a copy as well, and I am working on the Rhodonite shawl, which, as I showed you last week, looks like this. And last week I showed you that I was going to use some handspun yarn of mine, and I actually started with the handspun yarn and cast on and got through a couple of the repeats, and I decided that I didn't like it. It wasn't that I didn't like the shawl, I just didn't like the combination of the yarn and the shawl, and I didn't want to work on it. I kept putting off doing another repeat on it, and given that this is something that I'm doing for review, I didn't want to hate doing the project. And like I said, it's nothing about the pattern, it was that it just wasn't the right yarn with the pattern. It's yarn that I spun a long time ago, I have another idea for it, but it wasn't super pleasant to knit with, and it was singles that I spun a long time ago before I really knew how to spin singles. So it was a little thick and thin, some parts were kind of overspun and wiry, and some parts were kind of underspun, and it didn't work the way I wanted it to work for this shawl. So I went to bed one night, kind of bummed out about the shawl. I think it was actually Christmas. Yeah, it was Christmas Day, where I had knit a couple, because I think I started it like the day before Christmas Eve, and I knit a few repeats, and then I just didn't want to work on it all of Christmas, and it really bummed me out, because I hate having things on the needles that I don't want to work on. I mean, this is a hobby. This is supposed to be fun. So I went to bed, and I was lying in bed, and it always takes me a long time to fall asleep, so I just kind of think about my day and things that have happened and brainstorm, and oftentimes I end up thinking about knitting projects, and all of a sudden I had this crazy light bulb go off in my head that I had this set of yarn where I had gotten kind of a main color and a set of minis, and I had gotten it at Knitting in the Heartland, which is our biannual conference here in Kansas City, and it was this year, but I had gotten it the last time around, so it's like basically 3 years old. And I was super excited because it's beautiful yarn and I wanted to get it out of the stash. So I started over and have gotten quite a bit further. So I'll show you the colors. The skein that I had, it's actually a half skein, not a full skein, but the skein that I had the most of is this really pretty mustard colorway. And then the skeins that I had, as they were like a mini skein kit, were these 5. So I've got like a really pretty kind of lavender, a pretty mint green, a darker blue, a lighter blue, and then this kind of plummy magenta-y purple. So those are it's kind of hard to show them. So those are the ones, and then I have them with the mustard. And I thought that was a really nice color combination when I picked it out. I had always planned on doing a shawl of some sort with it. So I have been working through, and this particular shawl is designed to be used with a gradient set. Sorry, something fell down over there, and that's why I was like, oh, it's just fiber. It's not a big deal. The shawl was designed to be used with a gradient set where you do, you work with all the different colors and you do a fat stripe in one color and a skinny stripe in another color and then another fat stripe and then another skinny stripe. And so I wasn't sure how I wanted these colors to play together, and what I did was I opened an Excel spreadsheet and tried to pick colors that were close to these colors, and then tried setting them up in all different stripe orders and seeing what I liked. And when I got to where I liked it, I wrote down what I had, and then I started knitting. And I have just started the 9th repeat, and this is where I'm at. So I am absolutely loving this. So I posted a picture on Instagram the other day and somebody said they're kind of vintagey colors, and they are kind of. Sorry, I just kicked the tripod. They are kind of, but I really, really like them. So I've got all the colors here, and I am repeating the mustard kind of twice as often as all the other colors because I have the half skein of it. So I'm using that as kind of my main signature color to tie things together, but all the other little stripes in between. And I have worked through one full repeat of using each color once in the yellow twice, and now I'm on the second repeat. I should have enough yarn to get all the way through a second repeat, and then we'll have to see how things go from there. I may not have enough to do a third full repeat of the stripes. I should have enough on the darker colors. I just don't know if I'll have enough on the lighter colors. And then I haven't decided if I'd really like to use all of this yarn so that I don't have leftovers in stash, although I could put some of the leftovers in my sock yarn blanket if they're really small. But I haven't decided if at the end I will just stripe by changing colors as often as I need to, or if I'm going to preserve this. The type A personality in me thinks I might just preserve the fat and skinny stripes and finish when I finish. But we'll see. So this is the progress I have so far. I'm very pleased with it. I would say I'm not halfway through my yarn because these little ones up top take very little yarn. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But I am just going to keep going, and my hope is to have this project be the other one that sees a ton of work this week. I mean, if I could finish the socks and finish the shawl this week, I would. I don't think that's quite doable, but my hope is to make a ton of progress on them and be really close to finishing by if I could finish by 2 weekends from now, that would make me really happy because I have other things I need to cast on in January. So that is what I'm doing. Again, this is the Rhodonite Shawl from Hunter Hammerson's Curls 3 book. Laura is the winner, so please get in contact with me. And I hope that you enjoy knitting shawls from this book. I can recommend this to anyone, really. It is a lovely book, and I am enjoying working on the shawl. So, and then the other thing that I will show you is we didn't really do too much in the way of Christmas gifts this year. My mother-in-law had actually asked last year if we could not exchange gifts because we're all kind of at the point where if we really want something or need something, we kind of buy it. And so it was getting harder and harder to shop for each other without just buying stuff, and none of us really needs stuff. And then Wes and I discussed it, and so he has to go to London for work in January, and he has to be there for almost 2 weeks. So I am actually going to fly over and spend a long weekend with him. So we're spending our money there, and we're going to be going to Ireland this coming summer on our kind of running vacation. And so since it's going to be an expensive year, we decided that, oh, and then the other thing is, so we're going to Ireland and we're going on this running vacation, which means basically we're going to do like anywhere between 3 and 7 miles daily in a run. And so I have a really nice Canon that I use. It's a Canon T3 Rebel. And I use it to shoot a lot of photos, and I love it. It's a beautiful camera. It takes stunning photos. But since we're going to be running, I can't take a big, like, digital SLR with a big lens with me. So the other thing we talked about is that in the spring, kind of across for his birthday and my birthday, we think we're going to get some little point-and-shoot cameras, some real lightweight cameras. So between all of that, we just decided that we did not want to do Christmas gifts for each other. So we really didn't. We bought each other a couple little things this month that don't really count as Christmas gifts. I bought him, after the fiasco of the felted slippers that didn't felt, I don't remember if I think I brought them back and talked about them. I bought him a pair of boiled wool slippers for Christmas, and he actually bought me like a mannequin so I can style my photos on it, but it was just a mannequin off of Amazon. So the only thing that I bought for myself this holiday season is I couldn't resist. I bought myself one of the Fringe field bags, Fringe Supply field bags. This is the special holiday one in gingerbread, and I think they called it gingerbread icing or iced gingerbread. And I just fell in love with it, and I had been wanting one of the plum Fringe Supply totes, and I just decided it's back ordered till the new year, and I really liked this one and I wanted one, and so this was my one splurge on myself, and my shawl project is living in there and I am loving it. It is like perfect for that. So that is the one Christmas gift that I will share with you, and then the mannequin you'll see in some of my photos probably. So we are just about finished with the gift along. This is the last couple days. Usually what I do is the 31st is the end of all the knitting for the gift along. Post your photos, and probably on January 2nd I will draw a winner. As I showed you, I'm going to lean over and get it. I showed you the prize last week or the week before, which is a cute little rainbow kind of mosaic stained glass window bag from Haverland on Etsy, and it's got that cute yellow lining. It's a good like one project, or a one skein project, or maybe notions. And then there is also a skein of Freya hand paints. This is the sport wool, I think. Yes, it's the sport. It's 75 grams, 200 meters of a gradient in the blue velvet colorway. So this is the prize for the gift along. I am pleased to see that many of you have posted it in there. This will be the grand prize. I will probably give away a couple patterns as well. So look for that on January 2nd. I'm not going to wait to announce that on the podcast because I don't want to wait all the way till next weekend, so I will do that on Wednesday the 2nd. Which brings me to our next knit along, and I actually received some feedback on that this week, and I'm so excited about that because I hadn't heard much from you guys. Traditionally, after the gift along, I spend a January calling it the selfish craft along, which is you can do any craft, but do something for yourself. Spoil yourself after you've spent time gift knitting for others, and if you haven't spent time gift knitting for others, that's fine. You can still spoil yourself in January. The only rule for these projects is that they should be something for you. And then I decided to sort of tie in another theme, which was I have always wanted to. So it should be something you've always wanted to do. It can be a technique, it can be a skein you've always wanted to work with, it can be a pattern you've always wanted to knit or sew, it can be a bump of fiber you've always wanted to spin, something that you've been holding off on for whatever reason, or you've always wanted to do but never found the time to do it. So that is the January project. I will say, I suppose you can pick up things that you have always wanted to finish if you have projects in progress, but let's say no more than half done. And I was going to just show you what I'm thinking about today. So ever since I wanted to learn brioche, I really wanted to knit the Sizzle Pop shawl by Leslie Ann Robinson. And this is what it looks like. And I don't know if you remember, the first time I decided to try brioche knitting, I actually bought this pattern and tried to work with it. And the problem is that I didn't even know how to knit brioche. So then trying to knit basically what amounts to a lace pattern and leaves and knit two togethers and whatever, along with brioche where you have double sets of stitches because you're kind of yarn overing and all of those different things. And I got really frustrated a few rows into the pattern and opted to pick a very simple, just plain brioche shawl. And I did that and loved it, but I have always wanted to knit that one. And part of the thing I have always wanted to do it with is I have always wanted to do it, even though it calls for fingering weight, I have always wanted to do it in worsted weight because I have always wanted to do it in a skein of Miss Babs' Yowza. And this is actually only half the skein, but this is in Deep Sea Jellyfish. And it is one of her great colorways. It is pinks and oranges and blacks and grays. And I have always wanted to use one of her crazy wild Yowza skeins in a big, fluffy, warm shawl. And this is actually on my Make 9 for this year. I thought I was going to cast on something else first, but I think I'm going to do this for the I've always wanted to. And this past year at Plyaway, because I really wanted to do this, technically this was on my list for 2018, but that's fine. I'll just cast it on in 2019 instead. I picked up from CJ Coho. This is 85% Polworth, 15% silk. This is a DK weight. This is technically a worsted weight, but brioche is pretty forgiving, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. This one has 560 yards. This one has 660 yards, but it is just a plain, beautiful kind of slate gray. So my plan is to brioche in these two. I figure this will bring this down just a smidge, but will still allow it to shine. And there are little bits of black and gray in here, so I figure it will work really well tonally. So that is my I have always wanted to. I do not expect that I will finish it this month because, like I said, I have other things that I need to finish first. But that is what I am planning to cast on, and I already have the pattern printed out. I'll need to wind this one up, and I am ready to go. So I don't know if I'll cast that one on this week. I probably won't let myself cast it on at least until, well, no, I probably won't let myself cast it on because I was going to say when I finish the socks, I'll probably just start Roxy's socks. So I probably won't let myself cast it on until I finish this shawl, which is more motivation to finish this shawl. So, and this is living in a knit and stitch bag, knit and stitch bits bag. She is out of Australia, and I just love the geishas, little geisha print. So that is my first cast on for 2019. I also have another cast on that I need to do in January, which is I received some yarns from Kramer. And I'm going to be doing a review with those. I received some Perfection worsted, and I'm going to knit I'm going to work on a sweater for Miles. So, and it'll be for his birthday for this year. So there's no big rush other than the fact that I need to review the yarn. So my 2 cast-ons in January, hopefully once I finish these things, are my I've always wanted to brioche shawl and then that sweater. So, and I don't have another pair of, if I finish my socks and Roxy's socks, I don't have another pair of socks in the wings yet. I have a bunch of other things on my Make 9 that I will tackle as time comes up, because the other shawl I'd really like to get into is my Nightshade by Andrea Mowry, the one that I pulled all of the beautiful handspun yarns for, and I thought that's what was going to be my first cast on, but I decided to join you for the I've always wanted to knit along. So even though I very much wanted to knit the Nightshade shawl, I don't really have an I've always wanted to for that one because the pattern just came out. The yarn is my handspun, but I do knit in my handspun, so I feel like saying I've always wanted to knit with this handspun. So, and it's not, there aren't a lot of techniques in it, so that'll just have to be a February knit. So that is it for knitting. Let's go to spinning. And thank you for sticking with me. I know this is a little bit longer than usual, but I had lots to show you and talk about. So let's do just a little bit of a spinning wrap up. I will show you the last thing that I spun for the year. I worked on my spinning box. I showed you that the last time, and I did 5 of the 8 bundles. One of the bundles I'm not going to do, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then the other 2 fiber sets are poonies or roll-logs, and I would actually like to potentially spindle spin those, so I've held those out. So what I spun this week was 5 ounces of fiber. And each of these is approximately an ounce and anywhere between 75 and 90 yards of yarn. So I will show you, this one is Kwanzaa, and it is reds and greens, and then it's also got a little bit of black in it. And these are all 2-ply. I spun them up just as singles and then plied them from a center pole ball. So this is Kwanzaa. This is Hogmanay. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. This one came out a little bit thicker. Also, it's interesting to see how I spin with different fiber prep. This one was roving, or top, I should really say. This one was top, so it was nicely combed, processed, all the fibers going in the same direction. Hogmanay was a bat, and it has a bunch of different things in it, including oh, I don't even remember. There's some Angelina, there's a bunch of different fibers, there's a bunch of different colors. Some of it spun up really thin, some of it spun up really thicker, lots of texture in this one. And so I got a little less yardage on this, but I still enjoyed spinning it. Then I spun up Hanukkah, which I think what this was is either true roving or maybe sliver. It looked like it wasn't all combed exactly in the same direction, and it didn't hang together the way commercial top does. But it kind of looked like, I don't want to say a rope because that's not what it was, but it kind of looked like a steady stream. It may have also been dizzed, which is when you pull fibers, you kind of pull fibers so they're roughly going in the same direction through some kind of an object that has a hole in it. You can use like just a plastic hole, you can use anything. You can use like the ring from a from a water bottle, anything, depending on how thick you want to make it. This wasn't super thick, and the fibers were generally going in the same direction, but it didn't look like commercial top. Then I spun a bat that was for St. Lucia's Day, and this one's real, it's hard to tell. There's a lot of Angelina in here, and then there's red and green and gray, and this again was more of a chunkier, thicker spinning experience because it was in bat form. And then the final, I'm not exactly sure what this was. This was super, super dense. There was a lot of fiber packed into this. Technically, this was, I think, 5.2 ounces, and I got the longest yardage on this one, but that's because there was more fiber there. This was Christmas, and it was bamboo and merino, and it's kind of in natural colors with a little bit of blue and tan. I don't know how well that's showing up. So altogether, this was 5.1 ounces. I'm probably around 450 to 500 yards. I haven't washed them all, so it's mostly just counting like wraps when I wrap them up. But that is what I spun this week. There is one bump that I pulled out, and I started sneezing. It was very aromatic. It had Gotland and Angora and something else in it. And I'm not specifically sure that I was sneezing because of the fibers themselves. It was very scented. It smelled super, super like animal-y. And I'm used to kind of like Shetland and sheepy, but it may have been the bunny and everything else in there. And I started sneezing, and I started trying to spin it, and it was kind of clumpy, and stuff was flying everywhere, and I was sneezing, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to spin this one. I don't want to spin this one. It wasn't any fault of the fiber artist who put it together. It just wasn't working for me, and I was like, I am not going to do this. I'm not going to make myself miserable. So I went ahead and chucked it. So that was the 6th, and then like I said, the 7th and 8th are Rologs or Poonies. I haven't actually opened them yet, and I think each one has 3 or 4 in there, and so what I thought I'd actually like to do is spindle spin each one, and then either 3 or 4 ply them together so I get like a little gradient yarn. So I think that's what I'm going to do with those at some point, so this is what I will finish for now. So let's talk a little bit about my spinning for the year. This is the first year that I've had what I would consider a spinning slump, where through parts of the year I just wasn't that interested in spinning. My goal for the last, I started I think back in like 2012 or 2013, which was spinning X pounds in X year, which was like 11 pounds in 2011, 12 pounds in 2012, 13 pounds in 2013, blah, blah, blah. I think I made it up to about 2014 or 2015 before I was like, okay, it's too many pounds. I just can't do it. And then for the last several years, my goal has been to spin a braid a week, which is 52 braids a year, which translates to roughly 13 pounds a year. And the last several years I have made that goal. This year I did not. And honestly, I'm okay with it. Like I said before, this is a hobby. I do this for fun. I still managed to spin 10.5 pounds of fiber this year, so not that bad. Basically what happened was there were some months that I took off, and then I sort of made up for it a lot in July with Tour de Fleece. And then actually this month I spun quite a bit too. I guess because it's indoor, I was indoors and I was having fun. And so it's fine. Like I said, I spent about 10.5 pounds of fiber. I looked at my buying habits for this year, and I dropped back to a single dose of Hello Yarn's Fiber Club. And so, well, I guess for the first part of the year I did a double dose. But at this point, I am on a single dose of Hello Yarn Fiber Club, and that is the only thing that I have not given up since I quit my job. And so that gets me a 4-ounce braid of fiber a month. So that is 3 pounds a year. This year, I brought in, I think, between 6 and 6.5 pounds of fiber. Might have been a little bit more than that, but I knew I spun 10.5. I know I spun out more than I brought in, because even if I doubled the Hello Yarn Club for the entire year, that would only have been 6 pounds, and I am buying a lot less fiber because I have a lot of fiber, and because I had clubs. So I'm not saying that I'm not going to buy anything in 2019. I am definitely keeping the Hello Yarn Fiber Club, and I will buy some braids here and there as I get motivated to or go attend fiber festivals, or because I am attending, well, I'm attending a bunch of things this year. I am going to Winter Wool Fest, which is here in Kansas this coming weekend. It is over in Wamego, Kansas, and it is a whole bunch of local dyers and fiber artists. I will be going to Plyaway again in the spring. If you are coming and would like to meet up, let me know, but I will be doing that in April. I will be traveling to a couple conferences for work this year, and I'm not going to say I'm not going to buy anything there. And I might maybe go to Stitches this year. So I have plenty of opportunities for buying, but as I said before, I am really going to try and work from stash outside of the Hello Yarn that's coming in. And my hope for this year is basically I'm still going to stick with the 13-pound goal, and we'll see where I end up. I'm also joining the Spin 15 a Day, which is hosted by, 1764 Shepherdess, I think, on Instagram. Basically, the theme is just to spin 15 minutes a day. She has monthly themes, so I'm going to try and stick with those. And of course, I didn't look it up. I think January is like Winter Wonderland or something like that, so I need to pull some winter fiber. And I think I'm just gonna, keep going with my spinning and spin when I feel like it. And I have projects I want to do, and I'm loving working with my hand spun yarn. So that is kind of my year-end wrap-up and look forward. And then I guess, I should have opened this and braided it. My first spin of the year is going to be something I got in recently, but I liked the colors, so let's do it. This was the November Fiber Club, so it arrived at the beginning of December. It is, it's the Hello Yarn Fiber Club. And it is her 80% Targhee, 10% bamboo, 10% Tussa silk top. And like I said, it's in the colorway Mandarin. She's doing a really interesting take on her club this year, which is she's doing all bird colorways. And so she showed us a picture of the Mandarin, which I believe it's a duck, and she dyed the fiber sort of on some of the colors that she saw in the duck. And I should have braided this beforehand, I'm sorry, because usually I have that ready to go. But it is blues and purples and browns, and this would be a great blend for socks because it's got bamboo and silk and Targhee, and it's just going to fluff up and be lovely. And so that is what I am going to spin next, and this will definitely be in the shop. So that is what I've got for you today. I hope that you have a wonderful end of the year and are looking forward to 2019. I'm interested to hear if you're making crafting goals, and I'm also interested to see what you'll do in the I've always wanted to. Oh, I meant to mention, I saw apparently it's a great idea because I saw another podcaster post that she is also hosting a sort of like Have I Always Wanted To, or a Never Have I Ever, or whatnot. I just want to remind you that all of my craft-alongs, you can multiple, double, quadruple, triple, quadruple, quintuple dip in anyone else's for prizes. Like I said, you just have to be a member of our group and post some photos in ours to be considered for prizes. But I do not mind if you go and post in other people's groups as well and work in theirs. That is not a problem for me. The more the merrier, and we should all be having fun together. So I hope that you have a wonderful end of the year and enjoy a happy and healthy and safe New Year's with your family and friends. Thank you so much for joining me in 2018, and I look forward to seeing you in 2019. And I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time.